Sit back and throw one back with your pinky in the air and a middle finger to the world, and join me, the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, as we look back on this day in pro wrestling history. But before we do, put that drink down, like, share, and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get our wrestling history on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is May 4th, and we're going to start off as we always do on a positive note. That's right, these are your pro wrestling birthdays. 1934, legendary wrestler and manager, Mr. Fuji. 1939, Ricky Steamboat's namesake, Sam Steamboat. 1967, international journeyman, Jim Steele. 1984, former WWF talent, Brad Maddox. 1987, German wrestler, Da Mack. Of course, on the flip side of that coin, your pro wrestling deaths for May 4th. 2001, the Haiti Kid. Alright, enough of the sad stuff. It's time to get to the meat and potatoes. That's right, these are your pro wrestling history highlights for May 4th. Not a long trip in the Wayback Machine as we start in 1980. Blackjack Mulligan and Dewey Robertson defeat Mass Superstar number 1 and 2 in the main event of a live card at the Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens. Staying in 1980, at a Georgia Championship Wrestling show, Mr. Wrestling 2 wrestles twice. First, defeating Dory Funk Jr., and second, defeating NWA World Champion Harley Race in a non-title Lights Out match. 1981, Pat Patterson defeats Sergeant Slaughter in an alley fight at 14 minutes and 25 seconds when the Grand Wizard, who escorted Slaughter to the ring before the match, returned to ringside and threw in the towel after Slaughter had been beaten a bloody mess. 1981, it was announced by Vince McMahon that Andre the Giant had suffered a broken ankle. The injury was blamed on Killer Khan, setting up a series of grudge matches after Andre recovered. WWE maintained ownership of the Giant cast and use it on display at most WrestleMania accesses. 1983, Tony Atlas defeats NWA champion Ric Flair in a non-title match in the main event of a Georgia Championship Wrestling event in Akron, Ohio. 1987, the Fantastics, Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers, defeat the Rock and Roll RPMs in a tournament final in Lubbock, Texas to win the World Class Tag Team Championships. Staying in 1987, Jim Crockett Promotions run Fayetteville, North Carolina, headlined by the Road Warriors beating the New Breed, Dusty Rhodes defeating Dick Murdoch, and Lex Luger wrestling Barry Windham to a no contest. The same evening, at the same time, the promotion ran Greenville, South Carolina, headlined by the Rock and Roll Express defeating the Midnight Express. Grabbing our flannel and going to the decade of grunge, 1990. Grabbing our flannels and going to the decade of grunge, 1990. NWA U.S. Champion Lex Luger defeats NWA World Champion Ric Flair via disqualification at the 18-minute mark. Luger, who had travel problems, didn't arrive to the show until 10 p.m., well after it was announced that Rick Steiner would replace him. 1994, at a New Japan Pro Wrestling event, Rick Rude defeated Sting to win the WCW International World Heavyweight title, aka the Big Gold Belt. This would be Rick Rude's final match, as Rude severely injured his neck during this bout, ending his in-ring career. Rude would be stripped of the title on a technicality, and Rude would disappear from the wrestling scene until resurfacing in ECW in January 1997. Also on the same card, Shinya Hashimoto defeats Tsunami Fujinami to win the IWGP Heavyweight title. And last but not least, 1998, WCW held a Nitro taping in Indianapolis featuring Fit Finlay winning the WCW World Television title from Booker T after Booker was distracted by Chris Benoit. Those were your short but sweet pro wrestling history highlights for May 4th. I'm the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, and we'll see you tomorrow.